Have you ever felt the hairs on your neck stand up for no apparent reason? Or perhaps in the stillness of the night you've heard a whisper that sends shivers down your spine? Listeners, as we embark on this journey filled with mystery and intrigue, ask yourselves what lies beyond the veil of reality. Are these tales mere figments of imagination, or could they be glimpses into the unknown realms that exist right beside us? Prepare yourselves for an adventure through some of the most chilling and fascinating Filipino ghost stories, as shared by a loyal listener. Through these narratives, we explore the deep cultural tapestry of the Philippines, where folklore merges seamlessly with personal experience, and where each story carries with it echoes of history, tradition, and the collective consciousness. This is Alex, and you're listening to Stories Philippines Podcast. Have you ever felt a chill down your spine in a place that should feel safe and familiar? Have you ever sensed that you weren't alone, even when you knew you should be? Tonight, we delve into the world of childhood fears and the lingering mysteries of the past with a story from the heart of Iloilo City. Our storyteller, let's call her Maria, grew up in a quaint, Spanish-era house in Iloilo City. Imagine, if you will, a house with high ceilings, intricate cappy shell windows that cast shimmering patterns on the wooden floors, and a sprawling garden filled with the scent of jasmine and the chirping of crickets. This house, a relic of a bygone era, was a world of its own for young Maria. But it was also a place where she felt an unsettling presence, a feeling that she wasn't entirely alone. It's like that feeling you get when you're walking down a dark hallway and you just know someone is watching you, even though you can't see them. The shadowy figures first appeared when Maria was around 7 years old. It was a hot summer night, the kind where the air hangs heavy and still, and sleep is a distant dream. Maria lay in bed, tossing and turning when she noticed two tall, dark figures standing at the foot of her bed. They were humanoid in shape, but their features were obscured by the darkness, shrouded in an unsettling ambiguity. Maria, frozen with fear, her heart pounding in her chest, could only watch as they silently observed her. Can you imagine that feeling? To be a child, alone in the dark, and to see something so inexplicable, so unnerving. The next morning, Maria, still shaken by the experience, told her grandmother about the figures. Her grandmother, a woman of strong faith and traditional beliefs, dismissed it as a bad dream, a figment of a young imagination overactive from the heat. However, the figures continued to appear, always at night, always silent and watchful, like spectral guardians of the night. Maria began to dread the darkness, the time when the shadows lengthened and the familiar shapes of her room transformed into something unknown and menacing. She would often lie awake, listening for any sign of their presence, her fear a constant companion. One night, Maria, perhaps driven by a newfound courage, or maybe just a desperate need for answers, decided to confront the figures in her dreams. It's amazing how our minds can sometimes face our fears in the realm of dreams, isn't it? She found herself in a dimly lit hallway, the air thick with anticipation. The figures stood at the far end, their forms shifting and wavering in the shadows. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling but resolute. "What do you want?" The figures remained silent, their forms flickering in the shadows like flames in a dying fire. Maria, her curiosity overcoming her fear, reached out to touch one of them, but her hand passed right through, leaving her with a feeling of icy coldness, a chill that seemed to penetrate her very soul. The figures continued to haunt Maria's childhood, appearing not only in her bedroom but also on the grand staircase, their elongated shadows stretching across the walls like ghostly fingers reaching out from the past. Maria's family, though skeptical, couldn't deny the strange occurrences in the house. Doors would slam shut for no reason, objects would move inexplicably, and whispers would echo through the empty rooms, sending shivers down their spines. It's as if the house itself had become a conduit for these unexplained phenomena, a stage for the supernatural. Maria, now an adult, still remembers those childhood encounters with a shiver. She believes that the figures were somehow connected to the history of her house, perhaps remnants of the people who lived there during the Spanish colonial era, their spirits tied to the place they once called home. Iloilo City, with its rich past and its role as a center of trade and conflict, holds countless stories within its walls, stories of love and loss, of triumph and tragedy. Maria's house, she believes, is just one of many places where the past refuses to be forgotten, where the echoes of history linger in the shadows. Maria's story highlights the power of childhood experiences to shape our perceptions of the world. The figures she encountered, whether real or imagined, left a lasting impression on her, influencing her beliefs about the supernatural and the interconnectedness of the past and present. It's a reminder that our childhood homes, with their familiar scents and sounds, the creaking floorboards, the rustling curtains, can also hold hidden corners of mystery and wonder. They are not just physical structures, but repositories of memories, emotions, and perhaps even the lingering presence of those who came before us. Iloilo City, during the Spanish colonial era, was a melting pot of cultures, a place where Filipino traditions blended with Spanish influences, creating a unique cultural tapestry. This fusion is reflected in the architecture of Maria's house, with its Spanish-style design and Filipino craftsmanship. It's fascinating to consider how this blending of cultures might have also influenced the spiritual landscape of the region, creating a unique tapestry of beliefs and traditions. Perhaps the figures Maria encountered were manifestations of this cultural fusion, spirits caught between two worlds, their presence a reminder of the complex history that shaped Iloilo City. Did you know that Iloilo City was once known as the Queen City of the South? It was a major economic hub during the Spanish colonial era, its port bustling with trade and its streets lined with elegant mansions. The city's rich history is still evident today in its well-preserved heritage buildings and its vibrant cultural traditions. It's a city where the past and present coexist, where the stories of yesterday whisper through the streets and alleyways. We've all had experiences that have shaped our understanding of the world, moments that have left us with a sense of wonder, fear, or perhaps a lingering question. Maria's story is a reminder that the past is never truly gone, that it can linger in the shadows, whispering its secrets to those who are willing to listen. Do you have a story to share? Have you ever encountered something unexplained, something that challenged your beliefs or left you with a sense of awe? We'd love to hear from you. Submit your story to the links that can be found in the show notes. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please consider supporting our podcast. Your contributions help us to continue creating these immersive and thought-provoking narratives. You can find links to our Patreon, PayPal, and other ways to support us in the show notes. Every little bit helps, and we appreciate your support in keeping this podcast alive. Have you ever felt a chill down your spine while driving alone on a foggy road? Have you ever sensed that you were not entirely alone, that something unseen was watching you from the shadows? Tonight, our next story will delve into the realm of the unexplained, the world of spectral figures and chilling encounters. We journey to the misty heights of Tagaytay Ridge in the Philippines, a place of breathtaking beauty, but also a place where the veil between the worlds seems to thin, allowing glimpses of the supernatural. Our story begins with Maria, a young woman who grew up hearing whispers of the White Lady, a spectral figure said to haunt the winding roads of Tagaytay Ridge. Maria, like many others, dismissed these tales as mere folklore, stories told to frighten children. But one fateful night, her skepticism would be shattered, and her life forever changed. Maria was driving home from a late-night visit to her grandmother, her mind preoccupied with the day's events. The fog was thick that night, swirling around her car like a ghostly shroud. The road ahead was barely visible, and Maria strained her eyes to pierce the gloom. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the headlights, a woman in a long white dress, her form shimmering in the mist. Maria slammed on the brakes, her heart pounding in her chest. The figure floated towards the car, its face obscured by the fog. Maria gasped, her breath catching in her throat. Just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Maria alone in the eerie silence. Maria was shaken to her core, She had always been a rational person, but this experience defied all logic. She couldn't explain what she had seen, but she knew it was real. This encounter awakened in her a deep curiosity about the supernatural, a desire to understand the forces that lie beyond our perception. She began to research the legend of the White Lady, delving into the history and folklore of Tagaytay Ridge. Maria discovered that the White Lady is a recurring figure in Filipino folklore, often associated with tragic love stories and unresolved grief. Some say she is the spirit of a woman who died waiting for her lover to return from war, her spirit forever searching for him on the roads he once traveled. Others believe she is a mother who lost her child, her restless soul forever searching for her lost loved one. The White Lady, with her flowing white gown and sorrowful aura, seems to embody the universal themes of love, loss, and longing. Her presence in folklore across cultures suggests a deep-seated human need to explain the inexplicable, to find meaning in the face of tragedy and the unknown. Did you know that the belief in ghosts and spirits is widespread across the Philippines? The country's rich history, with its blend of indigenous beliefs and colonial influences, has created a fertile ground for supernatural tales. Many Filipinos believe that spirits can linger in the physical world, especially in places where strong emotions were experienced, such as battlefields, hospitals, and even crossroads. Maria's research led her to her own family history, where she uncovered a chilling connection to the White Lady legend. Her grandmother, a woman of few words, finally shared a story she had kept hidden for years. She told Maria about her own encounter with the White Lady, an experience that had haunted her for decades. Maria's grandmother, Elena, had her own chilling encounter with the supernatural, this time on the misty roads of Tagaytay Ridge. Elena, a young woman at the time, was driving home from a weekend trip with friends when a thick fog descended upon the mountain road. Visibility was reduced to a few feet, and Elena slowed her car to a crawl, her heart pounding with anxiety. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fog, standing by the side of the road. It was a woman, dressed in a flowing white gown, her face hidden behind a veil. Elena slammed on the brakes, her car skidding to a halt just a few feet from the figure. The woman remained motionless, her white dress glowing eerily in the fog. Elena, terrified, couldn't take her eyes off the figure. She felt a chill run down her spine, and a sense of dread washed over her. She wanted to drive away, but her fear paralyzed her. After what seemed like an eternity, the figure slowly faded into the fog, leaving Elena alone on the deserted road. Shaken but unharmed, Elena continued her journey home, the image of the White Lady seared into her memory. She later learned that the White Lady is a common figure in Filipino folklore, often associated with tragic love stories and unfinished business. Some say she is the spirit of a woman who died waiting for her lover to return from war, while others believe she is a restless soul searching for peace. Elena's encounter with the White Lady left her with a profound sense of the unknown. She had always been a practical woman, but this experience challenged her beliefs and opened her mind to the possibility of a world beyond our understanding. The White Lady, with her ethereal presence and tragic aura, embodies the enduring power of love and loss. Her appearance on the misty roads of Tagaytay Ridge, a place known for its romantic vistas, adds another layer of poignancy to the story. It's as if the landscape itself is imbued with the emotions of those who have loved and lost, their stories echoing through the mists of time. The White Lady is not unique to Filipino folklore. Similar figures appear in cultures around the world, each with their own unique stories and symbolism. In Japan, there's the Yuki-onna, a snow woman who lures travelers to their deaths. In Mexico, there's La Llorona, the weeping woman who searches for her lost children. These figures, though different in their details, share a common thread. They represent the enduring power of human emotions, even in the face of death. The stories of Maria and Elena are just two of many encounters with the White Lady of Tagaytay Ridge. Some say she appears as a warning, a harbinger of danger. Others believe she is a benevolent spirit, offering guidance and protection to those who are lost or in need. Whether she is a ghost, a spirit, or a figment of our imagination, The White Lady continues to capture our imaginations and remind us that there are forces at work in the universe that we may never fully understand. The persistence of these legends reminds us of the power of storytelling and the human need to make sense of the world around us. These stories, passed down through generations, serve as a connection to our past, a way to preserve our cultural heritage and explore the mysteries of the human experience. As we gather around the metaphorical campfire of our podcast, sharing these chilling tales, we invite you, our listeners, to join the conversation. Have you had your own encounter with the supernatural? Do you have a story to share that will send shivers down our spines? We encourage you to submit your stories to us for a chance to be featured in future episodes. Your experiences, your fears, your encounters with the unknown are all part of the rich tapestry of human experience. We want to express our sincere gratitude to our listeners for your continued support. It's your passion for the paranormal, your curiosity about the unexplained, that fuels our desire to bring you these stories. If you enjoy our podcast and would like to help us continue creating these immersive and chilling experiences, please consider supporting us financially. You can find links to our Patreon, PayPal, and other donation options in our show notes. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us to keep the lights on, the microphones running, and the stories flowing. Our listener, a kind and compassionate caregiver named Ben, had always been drawn to helping others. He found fulfillment in his work at the care home, a peaceful haven for the elderly nestled in the quiet English countryside. The residents, with their stories and experiences, enriched his life in countless ways. However, one particular encounter left him questioning the boundaries between the living and the departed. It was a late autumn evening, and the care home was shrouded in a thick mist, the kind that seems to cling to the ancient oaks and roll across the fields, carrying with it the whispers of ages past. Ben was making his rounds, checking on the residents before bedtime, a routine he knew by heart, each room holding a familiar face, a life lived. As he passed room 23, he noticed a light on, a soft, warm glow emanating from within. Odd, he thought. That room has been empty for weeks, ever since Mrs. Higgins passed. Curious, he entered the room, the floorboards creaking beneath his feet, a sound that seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. And there, sitting in an armchair by the window, bathed in the golden light of the bedside lamp, was an elderly woman. She wore a floral dress, her silver hair neatly pinned back, a book resting in her lap. She looked up at Ben with a gentle smile, her eyes twinkling with a kindness that reached into his soul. "Good evening," she said, her voice soft as a whisper, yet clear as a bell. "I do apologize for the light. I simply couldn't resist finishing this chapter." Ben, though puzzled, found himself drawn in by her warmth. He politely introduced himself, his voice a bit shaky, and inquired about her name. "Evelyn Davies," she replied, her smile widening. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ben." He engaged in a brief conversation with Mrs. Davies, his initial confusion giving way to a sense of wonder. She spoke of her life, her childhood in a small village nestled amongst the rolling hills of Wales, her family, now scattered across the globe, and her enduring love for literature, particularly the works of Jane Austen. Ben, charmed by her intelligence and the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of her passions, made a mental note to check her file in the morning. He couldn't recall seeing her name on the resident list, but perhaps she was a new arrival. He bid her good night, a sense of calm washing over him as he left the room. As he continued his rounds, the encounter lingered in his mind, a comforting warmth spreading through him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had met someone truly special. The next morning, Ben eagerly went to the resident records, searching for Mrs. Davies' file. He flipped through the pages, each name a story, a life entrusted to their care. But Mrs. Davies' name was nowhere to be found. He inquired with his colleagues, describing the elderly woman in detail, her kind eyes, her floral dress, the book of poetry she held, but no one recognized her. Ben, perplexed and slightly unnerved, tried to dismiss it as a momentary lapse in memory, perhaps a dream brought on by the late hour and the misty night. But deep down, a nagging feeling persisted, a sense that something extraordinary had occurred. And then, the strange occurrences began. Doors would inexplicably swing open and slam shut, the sound echoing through the normally quiet hallways. Objects would vanish from their usual places, only to reappear days later in a different room, as if moved by an unseen hand. And sometimes when the air was still, the faint scent of lavender, Mrs. Davies's favorite perfume, would waft through the corridors, leaving a trail of mystery in its wake. The residents, too, began reporting strange sightings and unsettling feelings. Mr. Thompson, an elderly gentleman who usually kept to himself, his days spent lost in the pages of a well-worn book, claimed to have had a long conversation with Mrs. Davies about their shared love of poetry. He described her in detail, matching Ben's own recollection, down to the silver brooch she wore on her lapel. Mrs. Peterson, a sweet old lady with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, insisted that Mrs. Davies had helped her find her lost spectacles, even though Mrs. Peterson was alone in her room at the time. She just appeared out of thin air, Mrs. Peterson declared, and handed them to me with a smile, said I shouldn't lose them again. The staff, initially skeptical, began to acknowledge the inexplicable events. Whispers of a ghostly resident circulated among them, a mixture of fear and fascination in their voices. An atmosphere of unease settled over the care home, a sense of the uncanny creeping in alongside the familiar routines. Ben, though unsettled, felt a sense of empathy for Mrs. Davies. He wondered if she was a lost soul, unable to find peace, her spirit tethered to the place she once called home. Or perhaps she was a benevolent spirit, watching over the residents, offering comfort and companionship in their twilight years. He recalled the warmth in her eyes, the kindness in her smile, and couldn't help but feel that her presence, however inexplicable, was a source of comfort rather than fear. Ben's encounter with Mrs. Davies raises profound questions about the nature of reality and the persistence of consciousness after death. Is it possible for spirits to linger in places they once inhabited, their essence woven into the very fabric of the building, interacting with the living in subtle ways? Or are these experiences simply manifestations of our own subconscious fears and desires, projections of our longing for connection and continuity in the face of mortality? Perhaps in the quiet moments when the veil between worlds seems to thin, we catch glimpses of a reality beyond our comprehension, a realm where the past and present intertwine. The UK, with its long and rich history, is steeped in tales of ghosts and hauntings, stories passed down through generations, woven into the folklore of the land. From ancient castles, their stones whispering secrets of battles fought and lives lost, to historic pubs, where the echoes of laughter and sorrow mingle in the dimly lit corners, countless locations are said to be inhabited by spirits of the past. Even the rolling countryside, with its ancient burial mounds and hidden pathways, holds a sense of mystery, a feeling that we are not alone. The care home, in its quiet countryside setting, becomes a modern-day backdrop for this timeless dance between the seen and unseen, a place where the boundaries between the living and the departed seem to blur. It reminds us that even in the most ordinary of places, the extraordinary can occur, that the past can reach out and touch the present, leaving us to question the very nature of existence. The unsettling events continued, each day bringing a new mystery, a new whisper of the unseen. One afternoon, a vase of lilies, freshly placed on the reception desk, toppled over without explanation, shattering on the polished floor. The receptionist, startled, swore she saw a fleeting shadow pass, by just moments before the vase fell, a ripple in the air, a chill that ran down her spine. Later that week, during a musical performance in the common room, a piano, untouched by human hands, began to play a soft melody, a haunting tune that seemed to drift from another era. The residents, initially startled, fell silent, their eyes wide with wonder, some even tapping their feet to the rhythm, as if drawn in by an invisible force. The pianist, a young woman hired to entertain the residents, swore she hadn't touched the keys, her fingers hovering over the ivory, a chill running down her spine. Ben, witnessing these events, found himself increasingly drawn to the mystery of Mrs. Davies. He spent his free time researching the history of the care home, poring over old records, hoping to find some mention of her, some clue to her identity. He discovered that the building had once been a grand manor house, owned by a wealthy family in the 1800s. He found records of births, marriages, and deaths, stories of love, loss, and tragedy, lives lived and lost within those very walls. He even stumbled upon an old photograph, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, a faded image of a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Mrs. Davies, her eyes holding the same gentle kindness, her lips curved into a familiar smile. He began to feel a connection to Mrs. Davies, a sense of kinship with this woman who seemed to exist between worlds. He would often find himself talking to her, sharing his thoughts and feelings, as if she were a close confidante. He would leave a vase of fresh lavender in room 23, her favorite flower, a small gesture of respect and remembrance. And sometimes, when the air was still and the scent of lavender lingered in the air, he felt a sense of peace, a feeling that he was not alone. One evening, as Ben sat in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, he felt a presence beside him. He turned and saw Mrs. Davies sitting on the bench, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She seemed more solid this time, more real, as if the veil between worlds had thinned. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice soft as the evening breeze. Ben nodded, his heart filled with a mixture of awe and gratitude. He had so many questions, so many things he wanted to ask, but the words seemed to catch in his throat. Mrs. Davies turned to him, her eyes filled with a wisdom that transcended time. "Don't be afraid, Ben," she said. "I am not here to harm anyone. I am simply here to watch over this place, to offer comfort to those who need it." She spoke of her life at the manor, her childhood filled with laughter and joy, her marriage to a kind and loving man, her grief at his untimely death. She spoke of her love for the residents, her desire to help them find peace in their final days. "This place holds many memories," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Memories of joy and sorrow, of life and loss. But it is also a place of hope, a place where people come to find comfort and companionship in their twilight years." Ben listened intently, his heart filled with compassion for this woman who had found solace in watching over others, even in death. He realized that Mrs. Davies was not a ghost to be feared, but a guardian angel, a benevolent spirit who brought comfort and peace to the care home. Ben's growing connection with Mrs. Davies highlights the human capacity for empathy and compassion, even in the face of the unknown. It challenges our preconceived notions about ghosts and hauntings, suggesting that not all spirits are malevolent, that some may linger out of love and a desire to protect. It also raises questions about the nature of time and memory, and the ways in which the past can continue to shape the present. Did you know that the belief in ghosts and spirits is prevalent across cultures and throughout history? In ancient Rome, they believed in Lares guardian spirits that protected the home and family. In Japan, yurei are spirits that are said to linger in the physical world due to unfinished business or a strong emotional attachment. And in many Native American cultures, spirits are seen as an integral part of the natural world, with the power to influence the lives of the living. As the days turned into weeks, the presence of Mrs. Davies became a comforting constant in the care home. The residents, initially apprehensive, grew accustomed to her presence, their fear replaced by a sense of wonder and even affection. They would often speak of her as if she were a dear friend, sharing stories of her kindness and her gentle guidance. One afternoon, a new resident, Mrs. Emily Carter, arrived at the care home. She was frail and withdrawn, her eyes filled with sadness and confusion. She had recently lost her husband, her lifelong companion, and the world seemed a bleak and unfamiliar place. Ben, noticing her distress, introduced her to the other residents, hoping to ease her loneliness. But Mrs. Carter remained withdrawn, her heart heavy with grief. Later that evening, as Ben was making his rounds, he noticed a light on in Mrs. Carter's room. He entered and found Mrs. Davies sitting beside the bed, her hand gently resting on Mrs. Carter's arm. Mrs. Carter, eyes closed, seemed to be asleep, a peaceful expression on her face. "She's just a bit lost," Mrs. Davies whispered, her voice filled with compassion. "But she'll find her way. She just needs a little time and a little kindness." Ben watched as Mrs. Davies gently stroked Mrs. Carter's hair, her touch filled with a motherly tenderness. He felt a wave of emotion wash over him, a sense of awe at the depth of Mrs. Davies' compassion, her ability to offer comfort even in death. The next morning, Mrs. Carter awoke with a renewed sense of hope. She spoke of a dream she had, a dream of a kind woman with gentle eyes and a soothing voice, who had assured her that her husband was at peace and that she was not alone. She joined the other residents for breakfast, her face lit up with a smile, her heart filled with a newfound sense of belonging. Ben, witnessing this transformation, realized the profound impact Mrs. Davies had on the residents. She was not just a ghost, a lingering spirit, but a beacon of hope, a source of comfort and guidance for those navigating the twilight years of their lives. The care home, once shrouded in an air of unease, now felt imbued with a sense of peace and tranquility. The residents, surrounded by the love and care of the staff and the watchful presence of Mrs. Davies, seemed to find solace and contentment in their final days. The story of Mrs. Davies and Mrs. Carter highlights the power of human connection and the importance of finding solace in times of grief and loss. It suggests that even in death, we can continue to offer love and support to those we leave behind, that our spirits can transcend the physical realm and bring comfort to those in need. It also reminds us of the importance of compassion and empathy in caring for the elderly and the profound impact that kindness can have on their well-being. Throughout history, there have been countless stories of spirits offering comfort and guidance to the living. In many cultures, ancestors are revered and honored, their spirits believed to watch over and protect their descendants. In some spiritual traditions, mediums and psychics claim to communicate with spirits, offering messages of hope and healing to those who have lost loved ones. These stories, whether rooted in reality or folklore, speak to our deep-seated human need for connection and continuity, our desire to believe that death is not the end, but a transition to another realm. The story of Mrs. Davies spread throughout the care home, becoming a cherished part of its folklore. New staff members were told of the kind, ethereal resident who watched over the halls, a tale whispered with a mix of reverence and wonder. Residents, upon arriving, were reassured that they were not alone, that a gentle presence was there to offer comfort and companionship. And Mrs. Davies continued her quiet ministrations. She would often be seen sitting with residents in the garden, her presence bringing a sense of calm and serenity. She would appear at the bedside of those who were ill, offering a comforting presence in their moments of vulnerability. She would even join in the sing-alongs in the common room, her soft voice blending with the residents, creating a chorus of joy and resilience. One day, a young girl named Lily came to visit her grandfather, Mr. Johnson, a longtime resident of the care home. Lily was a bright and inquisitive child, her eyes filled with curiosity and wonder. She had heard the stories of Mrs. Davies, the kind ghost lady, and was eager to meet her. As Lily sat beside her grandfather's bed, listening to his stories of his younger days, she noticed a woman standing in the corner of the room. The woman was elderly, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, and she seemed to be watching over them with a loving gaze. Grandpa, Lily whispered, "Who is that lady?" Mr. Johnson, his eyesight failing, looked towards the corner of the room, but saw nothing. "What lady, Lily?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion. "The lady with the kind eyes," Lily replied, pointing towards the figure. "She's smiling at us." Mr. Johnson, realizing who Lily was referring to, smiled gently. "Ah, that's Mrs. Davies," he said. "She's a very special friend." Lily, her eyes wide with excitement, waved to Mrs. Davies, who returned the gesture with a warm smile. Lily spent the rest of the afternoon chatting with her grandfather and Mrs. Davies, sharing stories and laughter, her heart filled with joy. As Lily left the care home that evening, she turned to wave goodbye to Mrs. Davies, who stood at the window, her silhouette bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Lily felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of comfort and love that she carried with her long after she left. The story of Lily and Mrs. Davies became another cherished tale in the care home's folklore, a testament to the enduring power of kindness and compassion, and the ability of the human spirit to transcend the boundaries of life and death. The encounter between Lily and Mrs. Davies highlights the innocence and openness of children, their ability to see beyond the physical world and connect with the spiritual realm. It also underscores the importance of intergenerational connections, the ways in which the elderly and the young can learn from and support each other, sharing stories and experiences that enrich their lives. The belief in guardian angels is prevalent in many cultures and religions. In Christianity, guardian angels are believed to be spiritual beings assigned by God to protect and guide individuals throughout their lives. In Islam, guardian angels are known as mu'aqibat and are believed to record a person's deeds and accompany them throughout their journey. In many indigenous cultures, spirit guides and animal totems are believed to offer protection and wisdom. These beliefs, regardless of their specific form, offer comfort and reassurance, reminding us that we are not alone in our journey through life. As the years passed, the story of Mrs. Davies became an integral part of the care home's identity. It was more than just a ghost story, it was a tale of compassion, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The residents, staff, and visitors alike embraced the presence of Mrs. Davies, finding comfort and inspiration in her story. One day, a group of local school children visited the care home, their voices filling the halls with laughter and youthful energy. They had come to sing songs and share stories with the residents, bringing a touch of springtime vibrancy to the quiet routine. As they gathered in the common room, one of the children, a little girl named Sophie, noticed a woman sitting quietly in the corner. She was elderly, with silver hair and kind eyes, and she seemed to be watching the children with a gentle smile. Sophie, drawn to the woman's warmth, approached her and introduced herself. "Hello," she said. "My name is Sophie. What's your name?" The woman smiled. "My name is Evelyn," she replied, her voice soft as a whisper. Sophie, undeterred by the woman's quiet demeanor, continued to chat with her, telling her about her school, her friends, and her pet hamster. Evelyn listened patiently, her eyes twinkling with amusement. After a while, Sophie's teacher called the children together to sing a song. Sophie, reluctant to leave her new friend, invited Evelyn to join them. Evelyn hesitated for a moment, then nodded and followed Sophie to the group. As the children sang, their voices filling the room with joy, Evelyn stood quietly among them, her lips moving slightly as if she were singing along. Sophie, glancing at her new friend, noticed a tear rolling down Evelyn's cheek. "Are you sad?" Sophie whispered, concerned. Evelyn shook her head, a gentle smile spreading across her face. "No, dear," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. "I'm happy, very happy." After the children left, the staff gathered in the common room, discussing the day's events. They spoke of the children's enthusiasm, the residents' joy, and the heartwarming interaction between Sophie and the kind lady in the corner. Ben, listening to their conversation, felt a sense of warmth spread through him. He knew that the kind lady was none other than Mrs. Davies, her spirit continuing to touch the lives of those around her, bringing joy and comfort to both the young and the old. The story of Sophie and Mrs. Davies illustrates the timeless nature of human connection, the ability of spirits to transcend age and circumstance, and the power of music to evoke emotions and create shared experiences. It also highlights the importance of intergenerational interactions, the ways in which children and the elderly can enrich each other's lives, bringing joy, laughter, and a sense of belonging. Did you know that music therapy is often used in care homes to improve the well-being of residents? Music has been shown to have a positive impact on mood, memory, and cognitive function, and can help to reduce anxiety and depression. It can also provide a sense of community and shared experience, fostering social interaction and emotional connection. Years turned into decades, and the care home continued to be a haven for the elderly, a place where lives were lived, stories were shared, and memories were made. The staff, dedicated and compassionate, carried on the tradition of care and kindness, their work inspired by the legacy of Mrs. Davies. One day, a new resident, Mr. Arthur Wilson, arrived at the care home. He was a retired history professor, his mind sharp but his body frail. He had spent his life immersed in books and research, exploring the past and unraveling its mysteries. He was intrigued by the story of Mrs. Davies, the resident ghost, and eager to learn more about her. Ben, now a senior caregiver, shared the tales of Mrs. Davies with Mr. Wilson, recounting the encounters, the unexplained events, and the enduring sense of peace she brought to the care home. Mr. Wilson listened intently, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Fascinating," he said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "A benevolent spirit, watching over the residents. A truly remarkable story." Mr. Wilson, with his historian's mind, began to research the history of the care home and its surrounding area. He delved into old records, newspaper archives, and local folklore, piecing together the puzzle of Mrs. Davies' life. He discovered that she had been a beloved member of the community, known for her kindness, her generosity, and her love for literature. He found evidence of her involvement in charitable works, her dedication to helping those in need, and her passion for sharing stories and knowledge. Mr. Wilson shared his findings with the residents and staff, adding depth and richness to the legend of Mrs. Davies. He organized a small exhibition in the common room, showcasing photographs, documents, and artifacts related to Mrs. Davies' life, creating a tribute to her enduring legacy. The residents, inspired by Mr. Wilson's research, began to share their own memories and stories of Mrs. Davies, adding their personal experiences to the collective narrative. They spoke of her comforting presence, her gentle guidance, and her unwavering love for the residents. The care home, once a place of quiet routine, now buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose and connection. The residents, staff, and visitors alike felt a deeper appreciation for the history of the place, the lives that had been lived within its walls, and the enduring spirit of Mrs. Davies. Insightful comment: the story of Mr. Wilson and his research highlights the importance of preserving history and honoring the legacies of those who came before us. It also demonstrates the power of storytelling to connect generations, to create a sense of community, and to inspire acts of kindness and compassion. Trivia: did you know that many care homes have memory boxes or reminiscence corners to help residents connect with their past and share their life stories? These spaces often contain photographs, personal belongings, and other objects that trigger memories and spark conversations, fostering a sense of identity and belonging. One sunny afternoon, a young woman named Amelia visited the care home, her face etched with worry. She was seeking a place for her grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Green, who was struggling with dementia. Amelia had heard about the care home's reputation for compassion and its unique story of Mrs. Davies, and she hoped it would be the right place for her grandmother. Ben, now the care home's manager, greeted Amelia with warmth and understanding. He listened to her concerns, her hopes for her grandmother, and her curiosity about the resident ghost. Ben shared the story of Mrs. Davies, not as a spooky tale, but as a testament to the enduring spirit of kindness and compassion that permeated the care home. Amelia, touched by Ben's words and the welcoming atmosphere of the care home, decided to entrust her grandmother to their care. Mrs. Green, though confused and disoriented at times, seemed to settle in quickly, drawn to the warmth and friendliness of the staff and residents. One day, as Amelia visited her grandmother, she noticed Mrs. Green sitting in the garden, engaged in a lively conversation with an elderly woman. Amelia, curious, approached them and listened as they chatted about flowers, birds, and childhood memories. Mrs. Green, usually withdrawn and quiet, seemed animated and engaged, her eyes sparkling with joy. Later, Amelia asked her grandmother about the woman she had been talking to. Mrs. Green smiled and described her as a kind lady with a lovely smile and a gentle touch. Amelia, realizing who her grandmother was referring to, felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She knew that Mrs. Davies, the resident ghost, was continuing to bring comfort and companionship to the residents, even decades after her passing. The story of Amelia and her grandmother illustrates the enduring power of compassion and the importance of finding a sense of belonging, even in the face of cognitive decline. It also highlights the role of care homes in providing a supportive and nurturing environment for the elderly, where they can feel valued, respected, and connected to others. Did you know that studies have shown that social interaction and engagement can have a positive impact on the cognitive function and emotional well-being of individuals with dementia? Activities such as conversation, reminiscence therapy, and music therapy can help to stimulate memories, reduce anxiety, and improve quality of life. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Ben joined Amelia and her grandmother. He shared stories of Mrs. Davies, her kindness, her love for the residents, and her enduring presence in the care home. Amelia listened intently, her heart filled with gratitude for the care and compassion her grandmother was receiving. Mrs. Davies may not be physically present, Ben said, but her spirit lives on in the kindness and compassion we show to each other. She reminds us that even in the face of aging and loss, there is always hope, always love, and always the possibility of connection. Amelia, looking at her grandmother's peaceful face and the warm smiles of the staff, knew that she had found the right place for her grandmother, a place where she would be cared for, cherished, and surrounded by the enduring spirit of Mrs. Davies. Our next story is about Anya, a young, bright-eyed woman with a heart full of dreams and a head buzzing with ambition. Had just landed her dream job in the bustling heart of Makati's central business district. The office, housed in a gleaming new skyscraper, was a testament to modern architecture and corporate success. Its sleek design, state-of-the-art facilities, and panoramic city views spoke of progress and opportunity. Anya, eager to prove herself in this dynamic environment, threw herself into her work with passion and determination. However, as the days turned into weeks, a subtle unease began to creep into Anya's perception. It started with a persistent chill that clung to her despite the building's perfectly regulated climate control. Then came the flickering lights, the inexplicable computer glitches, and the unnerving feeling of being watched, even when she was alone in the late hours of the evening. Anya, with her sensitive nature and keen intuition, couldn't shake off the sensation that something was amiss, something beyond the realm of the ordinary. Her colleagues, too, started sharing their own unsettling experiences. Mr. Santos, the office manager, a man known for his composure and rationality, confided in Anya about hearing phantom footsteps echoing in the deserted hallways after everyone else had gone home. MS. Cruz, the ever-smiling receptionist, recounted seeing a shadowy figure flitting across the periphery of her vision, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Even Mr. Reyes, the stoic security guard, a man who had seen it all during his years of service, admitted to feeling an inexplicable wave of dread wash over him near the elevators, accompanied by a sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature. The office, a symbol of modernity and progress, seemed to be harboring secrets, whispering tales of an unseen presence that defied logic and reason. Anya, her curiosity piqued, decided to delve deeper into the history of the building. Her research led her to a startling discovery: the gleaming skyscraper stood on land that was once a cemetery, a final resting place for those who perished during the tumultuous years of World War II. A wave of chills ran down Anya's spine as she absorbed this revelation. Could it be that the restless spirits of the past, disturbed from their eternal slumber, were now weaving their way through the modern structure, their presence manifesting in the strange occurrences that plagued the office? Or perhaps the energy of the living, amplified by the stresses and anxieties of the corporate world, was creating its own kind of haunting, a psychic residue clinging to the walls and corridors. Anya's story reminds us that the past is never truly gone, that it can linger in the most unexpected places, woven into the fabric of our present. The modern office building, a symbol of progress and ambition, becomes a stage where the echoes of history intertwine with the anxieties of the present, creating a disquieting dissonance. It's a reminder that even in the most sterile and controlled environments, there are forces at play that we may not fully understand, energies that whisper of a reality beyond our immediate perception. The phenomenon of sick building syndrome often surfaces in modern architecture, where occupants experience a range of health issues and discomfort without any identifiable physical cause. While often attributed to poor ventilation, chemical pollutants, or ergonomic factors, some believe that unseen energies or spiritual influences can also contribute to the negative atmosphere of a building, creating an environment that is not only physically but also psychically unhealthy. Anya's story, with its blend of modern anxieties and historical echoes, opens a window into the unseen world, the realm of energies and entities that may exist just beyond our conscious awareness. It's a reminder that the world we perceive with our five senses is just one layer of reality, and that there may be other layers, other dimensions interwoven with our own, influencing our experiences in ways we may never fully comprehend. As Anya grappled with the unsettling reality of her workplace, she found herself drawn deeper into the mystery, determined to uncover the truth behind the strange occurrences that plagued the office. Her journey would lead her to confront not only the unseen forces at play, but also her own deepest fears and beliefs, forcing her to question the very nature of reality itself. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any personal experiences you might have had with the unseen. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to submit it to us. We're always on the lookout for intriguing tales to feature in future episodes. Support the show. If you enjoy listening to Stories Philippines podcast, please consider supporting us financially. Your contributions help us continue creating these captivating episodes and exploring the mysteries of the unseen world. You can find links to our Patreon, PayPal, and other support options in the show notes. Thank you for your generosity. Anya, armed with the unsettling knowledge of the building's history, found herself increasingly drawn to the unexplained occurrences. The cold drafts, the flickering lights, the fleeting shadows, they no longer filled her with fear, but with a sense of curiosity, a desire to understand the unseen forces at play. One evening, as Anya worked late, she decided to explore the building. The once familiar corridors now seemed imbued with an eerie silence, the hum of the air conditioning replaced by an unsettling stillness. As she wandered through the deserted office floors, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air, as if the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic clang echoed from the floor above, breaking the silence. Anya's heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously made her way up the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the empty stairwell. The sound had come from the executive floor, a space usually reserved for high-level meetings and rarely used after hours. As Anya reached the top of the stairs, she noticed a faint light emanating from the boardroom at the end of the hallway. The door was slightly ajar, casting an eerie glow into the darkened corridor. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Anya approached the room, her hand trembling as she pushed the door open. The boardroom was bathed in an unnatural light, emanating from the large windows overlooking the city. But what caught Anya's attention was the figure standing by the window, its back turned towards her. It was a tall, slender figure, draped in what appeared to be a flowing white garment. Anya's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't make out any distinct features, but the figure exuded an aura of profound sadness, a palpable sense of longing. A wave of empathy washed over Anya, a feeling of deep sorrow for this unknown entity. As if sensing her presence, the figure slowly turned. Anya gasped. The face was pale and translucent, the eyes hollow and filled with an ancient sadness. It was a woman, her features etched with a timeless grief. For a moment, their eyes met, and Anya felt a surge of understanding, a connection that transcended words or time. The woman's sorrow seemed to pour into Anya, filling her with a profound sense of empathy. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Anya alone in the eerie silence of the boardroom. Anya's encounter with the spectral woman in the boardroom highlights the emotional dimension of the unseen world. It's a reminder that ghosts, if they exist, are not just mindless apparitions, but beings with their own stories, their own emotions, and their own unresolved pain. Anya's ability to connect with the woman's sorrow speaks to the power of empathy, a bridge that can connect us not only to the living, but also to those who have passed beyond the veil. Many cultures around the world believe that spirits can linger in places where they experience strong emotions, especially places of suffering or trauma. In the Philippines, the belief in lingering spirits is deeply ingrained in the culture, with numerous stories and legends about ghosts inhabiting old houses, hospitals, and even battlefields. Anya's encounter left her shaken but also strangely empowered. She felt a sense of purpose, a calling to understand the unseen forces that inhabited the building and to help them find peace. She began to research the history of the cemetery that once occupied the site, poring over old records and interviewing local historians. She discovered that the cemetery was not just a burial ground for war victims, but also a final resting place for victims of a cholera outbreak in the late 19th century. Anya realized that the building was not just haunted by the ghosts of war, but also by the lingering suffering of those who had succumbed to disease and despair. Armed with this new knowledge, Anya felt a renewed sense of compassion for the unseen entities that shared her workplace. She began to see them not as frightening apparitions, but as lost souls, trapped in a cycle of suffering and longing. She felt a deep desire to help them find peace, to release them from their earthly bonds. Anya, armed with the unsettling knowledge of the building's history, found herself increasingly drawn to the unexplained occurrences. The cold drafts, the flickering lights, the fleeting shadows, they no longer filled her with fear, but with a sense of curiosity, a desire to understand the unseen forces at play. One evening, as Anya worked late, she decided to explore the building. The once familiar corridors now seemed imbued with an eerie silence, the hum of the air conditioning replaced by an unsettling stillness. As she wandered through the deserted office floors, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air, as if the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, a sharp, metallic clang echoed from the floor above, breaking the silence. Anya's heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously made her way up the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the empty stairwell. The sound had come from the executive floor, a space usually reserved for high-level meetings and rarely used after hours. As Anya reached the top of the stairs, she noticed a faint light emanating from the boardroom at the end of the hallway. The door was slightly ajar, casting an eerie glow into the darkened corridor. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Anya approached the room, her hand trembling as she pushed the door open. The boardroom was bathed in an unnatural light, emanating from the large windows overlooking the city. But what caught Anya's attention was the figure standing by the window, its back turned towards her. It was a tall, slender figure, draped in what appeared to be a flowing white garment. Anya's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't make out any distinct features, but the figure exuded an aura of profound sadness, a palpable sense of longing. A wave of empathy washed over Anya, a feeling of deep sorrow for this unknown entity. As if sensing her presence, the figure slowly turned. Anya gasped. The face was pale and translucent, the eyes hollow and filled with an ancient sadness. It was a woman, her features etched with a timeless grief. For a moment their eyes met, and Anya felt a surge of understanding, a connection that transcended words or time. The woman's sorrow seemed to pour into Anya, filling her with a profound sense of empathy. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Anya alone in the eerie silence of the boardroom. Anya's encounter with the spectral woman in the boardroom highlights the emotional dimension of the unseen world. It's a reminder that ghosts, if they exist, are not just mindless apparitions, but beings with their own stories, their own emotions, and their own unresolved pain. Anya's ability to connect with the woman's sorrow speaks to the power of empathy, a bridge that can connect us not only to the living but also to those who have passed beyond the veil. Many cultures around the world believe that spirits can linger in places where they experience strong emotions, especially places of suffering or trauma. In the Philippines, the belief in lingering spirits is deeply ingrained in the culture, with numerous stories and legends about ghosts inhabiting old houses, hospitals, and even battlefields. Anya's encounter left her shaken but also strangely empowered. She felt a sense of purpose, a calling to understand the unseen forces that inhabited the building and to help them find peace. She began to research the history of the cemetery that once occupied the site, poring over old records and interviewing local historians. She discovered that the cemetery was not just a burial ground for war victims, but also a final resting place for victims of a cholera outbreak in the late 19th century. Anya realized that the building was not just haunted by the ghosts of war, but also by the lingering suffering of those who had succumbed to disease and despair. Armed with this new knowledge, Anya felt a renewed sense of compassion for the unseen entities that shared her workplace. She began to see them not as frightening apparitions, but as lost souls, trapped in a cycle of suffering and longing. She felt a deep desire to help them find peace, to release them from their earthly bonds. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode and any personal experiences you might have had with the unseen. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to submit it to us. We're always on the lookout for intriguing tales to feature in future episodes. Support the show. If you enjoy listening to Stories Philippines podcast, please consider supporting us financially. Your contributions help us continue creating these captivating episodes and exploring the mysteries of the unseen world. You can find links to our Patreon, PayPal, and other support options in the show notes. Thank you for your generosity. Listeners, as we journey deeper into the mysteries of the unseen, we find ourselves drawn to the enigmatic concept of the third eye. This mystical portal, often veiled in esotericism, has captivated human imagination for centuries, beckoning us to explore the depths of our consciousness and the boundless realms beyond our physical senses. Our listeners' experiences, shared with a sense of wonder and curiosity, paint a vivid picture of a world pulsating with unseen energies, where colors shimmer with otherworldly vibrancy, and time itself seems to dance to a rhythm beyond our comprehension. These fleeting glimpses into expanded awareness leave us with a profound sense of awe, prompting us to question the very nature of reality and our place within it. Imagine, if you will, a world where our perception transcends the limitations of our physical eyes, where we can perceive the subtle vibrations of energy that permeate all living things, where we can glimpse the ethereal glow of auras, the spectral forms of spirits, and even catch fleeting visions of moments yet to unfold. This is the realm of the third eye, a gateway to a reality that lies just beyond the veil of our ordinary perception. In many spiritual traditions, the third eye is revered as a sacred center of intuition, insight, and spiritual awakening. It is often depicted as a chakra, a swirling vortex of energy, located in the center of the forehead, between the eyebrows. This energetic center is believed to be the bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, a portal through which we can access higher realms of consciousness and connect with the divine. Some believe that the third eye is a dormant faculty within each of us, a hidden potential waiting to be unlocked through meditation, spiritual practices, or even spontaneous experiences of heightened awareness. Others believe that it is a gift bestowed upon certain individuals, allowing them to serve as seers, mystics, and conduits between the worlds. Regardless of one's beliefs, the concept of the third eye challenges us to expand our understanding of reality and to embrace the possibility of a world beyond our ordinary senses. It invites us to explore the depths of our own consciousness, to awaken the intuitive whispers within, and to connect with the unseen forces that shape our lives. The third eye, whether a literal or metaphorical concept, speaks to the inherent human desire to transcend the limitations of our physical senses and to connect with a deeper reality. It reminds us that there may be more to the world than meets the eye, and that we all possess the potential to tap into a greater understanding of ourselves and the universe. The concept of the third eye has deep roots in ancient cultures around the world. In Hinduism, it is associated with the Ajna chakra, the center of intuition and wisdom, often depicted as a third eye on the forehead of deities like Shiva. In Buddhism, it is linked to the Buddha's enlightenment and the ability to see the true nature of reality. In ancient Egypt, the Eye of Horus symbolized protection, healing, and spiritual vision. These diverse traditions highlight the enduring human fascination with the unseen and the desire to connect with the divine. Listeners, don't forget to follow Stories Philippines podcast on your favorite podcast platform and explore the links in the show notes to discover how you can support the show and help us continue to bring you these captivating tales. Now, let's delve into some listener experiences and explore the fascinating ways in which the third eye has manifested in their lives. One listener, a young woman named Maria, shared a compelling story of a recurring dream that seemed to offer glimpses of future events. In her dream, she would find herself in a familiar location, but with subtle differences, as if she were witnessing a slightly altered version of reality. Days or even weeks later, she would find herself in that very location, experiencing the events she had witnessed in her dream with uncanny accuracy. Maria's experience raises intriguing questions about the nature of time and the ability of the third eye to perceive beyond the linear progression of moments. Could it be that our dreams offer us glimpses into potential futures, or perhaps even parallel realities? Another listener, a seasoned meditator named Carlos, described experiencing a profound sense of interconnectedness during deep meditation sessions. He would feel a sense of oneness with all living beings, a merging of consciousness that transcended the boundaries of his physical body. In these moments, he felt a deep sense of peace and understanding, a profound connection to the universe and the intricate web of life that binds us all. Carlos' experience speaks to the transformative power of meditation and its ability to awaken the third eye, allowing us to perceive the interconnectedness of all things. It reminds us that we are not isolated individuals, but rather integral parts of a vast and interconnected universe. These listener experiences offer tantalizing glimpses into the potential of the third eye to expand our perception and connect us with deeper realities. They remind us that the boundaries of our awareness are not fixed, but rather fluid and ever-expanding. Did you know that the pineal gland, a small pinecone-shaped gland located deep within the brain, is often associated with the third eye? This gland produces melatonin, a hormone that regulates sleep-wake cycles, and is also believed to play a role in spiritual awakening and expanded consciousness. Some researchers speculate that the pineal gland may be a vestigial remnant of a third eye that our ancient ancestors possessed, a physical manifestation of our innate connection to the unseen. Listeners, as we continue our exploration of the third eye, I invite you to share your own experiences and insights. Have you ever had a moment of heightened awareness, a dream that seemed to predict future events, or a sense of interconnectedness that transcended the boundaries of your physical body? We would love to hear your stories and explore the mysteries of the third eye together. And don't forget, if you enjoy Stories Philippines podcast, please consider supporting the show by checking out the links in the show notes. Your support helps us continue to bring you these fascinating tales and explore the depths of Philippine folklore and mysteries. Now let's turn our attention to some practical techniques for awakening the third eye and cultivating expanded awareness. Meditation, with its focus on quieting the mind and turning inward, is often cited as a powerful tool for activating the third eye. By stilling the incessant chatter of our thoughts, we create space for deeper insights and intuitive whispers to emerge. Visualization, the practice of creating mental images, can also be used to stimulate the third eye. By visualizing a radiant light emanating from the center of our forehead, we can activate this energetic center and enhance our intuitive abilities. Spending time in nature, surrounded by the beauty and serenity of the natural world, can also help to awaken the third eye. The sights, sounds, and smells of nature can soothe our senses and open us to the subtle energies that permeate all living things. Awakening the third eye is not about acquiring supernatural powers, but rather about cultivating a deeper connection to ourselves, to others, and to the universe. It is about expanding our awareness, enhancing our intuition, and living a more mindful and meaningful life. In some spiritual traditions, the color indigo is associated with the third eye. This deep, rich hue is said to represent intuition, wisdom, and spiritual insight. Listeners, as we conclude our exploration of the third eye, I encourage you to embrace the mysteries of the unseen and to cultivate your own intuitive abilities. The third eye, this gateway to expanded consciousness, invites us to explore the depths of our being and to connect with the boundless realms beyond our physical senses. Remember, the journey of awakening the third eye is a personal one, a path of self-discovery and exploration. Embrace the wonders that await you and allow your intuition to guide you on this extraordinary adventure. And now, listeners, I leave you with a question to ponder: what mysteries lie hidden within the depths of your own consciousness, waiting to be unveiled? Listeners, gather close as we delve into our final tale for this evening. A story that intertwines the everyday with the extraordinary, the tangible with the spectral. It's a story that reminds us that the boundaries between the living and the departed can be blurred, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Our story centers around Ramon, a young man brimming with the optimism and excitement that comes with acquiring a new phone. Imagine, listeners, the thrill of holding a sleek, modern device in your hands, a portal to endless possibilities, a connection to the world at your fingertips. Ramon's joy, however, was soon to be overshadowed by a series of unsettling events, a chilling intrusion from the beyond. It began subtly, with whispers that seemed to dance on the edge of perception, his name echoing in the silence of empty rooms. A cold chill, like a ghostly touch, would grip him whenever he held the phone, a creeping sense of unease settling over him. Ramon, initially, dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of his imagination, tricks of the mind playing in the shadows of his perception. But as the days passed, the phenomena grew more pronounced, more undeniable. One night, as Ramon lay in the hushed darkness of his room, the phone, lying dormant on his bedside table, suddenly sprang to life, not with the jarring ring of an incoming call, but with a voice raspy and faint, yet chillingly distinct, whispering his name over and over again. Imagine, listeners, the sheer terror that must have gripped Ramon's heart, the blood turning to ice in his veins as he was jolted awake by this spectral summons. He leaped from his bed, his heart pounding like a drum, and in a fit of panic, flung the phone across the room. The voice ceased abruptly, leaving an echoing silence in its wake. The following morning, Ramon attempted to rationalize the experience, attributing it to stress, fatigue, anything but the supernatural. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown, a chilling premonition that something was amiss. And indeed, the strange occurrences persisted. The phone would ring at odd hours, only to disconnect the moment he answered, leaving him with a hollow silence and a growing sense of dread. Cryptic text messages, filled with gibberish and unsettling symbols, would appear on the screen, as if from an unknown sender in an unseen realm. The feeling of being watched intensified, a constant, oppressive presence lurking just beyond his perception. Ramon, now consumed by anxiety and fear, decided to confide in his friend, the one who had gifted him the phone. His friend's reaction was not one of disbelief, but of a profound and unsettling recognition. He revealed that the phone had once belonged to his brother, who had tragically passed away in an accident. He had hoped, in his grief, that by passing the phone on to Ramon, he could somehow maintain a connection to his departed brother, a tangible link to his memory. This revelation struck Ramon like a bolt of lightning. Could it be that the spirit of his friend's brother was attempting to communicate through the phone, a desperate plea from beyond the veil? Or had the phone itself become a vessel, a conduit for his lingering energy, his essence trapped within its digital circuitry? Ramon's experience is a chilling reminder that the objects we interact with on a daily basis can hold more than just functional value. They can become imbued with the energies, the memories, and perhaps even the spirits of their previous owners. In a world increasingly dominated by technology, it's a stark reminder that the past can reach out and touch us in ways we may never fully understand. trivia, the concept of haunted objects is deeply ingrained in various cultures around the world. From antique dolls to cursed artifacts, these objects are believed to harbor spirits or energies that can interact with the living. In the Philippines, there's a belief in barang, an object that can bring either good luck or misfortune, depending on how it's used and treated. It's fascinating how these beliefs persist, even in our modern, technologically driven society. Listeners, don't forget to follow Stories Philippines podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss the next episode. And if you're enjoying the show, please consider supporting us by checking the links in the show notes. Your support helps us to continue bringing you these captivating tales from the Philippines. Ramon, grappling with this newfound knowledge, found himself at a crossroads. Should he try to communicate with the spirit, to offer solace, or perhaps even help it move on? Or should he sever all ties with the phone, to banish it from his life and risk further angering the unseen presence? He decided on a cautious approach, treating the phone with respect, almost as if it were a sentient being. He would speak to it softly, acknowledging the presence he felt, offering words of comfort and peace. He even researched ancient Filipino traditions for communicating with spirits, hoping to find a way to bridge the gap between the living and the departed. One evening, as he sat quietly with the phone in his hand, he felt a surge of energy, a tingling sensation that ran through his body. The phone screen flickered to life, displaying a single image, a picture of his friend's brother, smiling radiantly. Tears welled up in Ramon's eyes as he recognized the face, the vibrant life that had been tragically cut short. From that moment on, the strange occurrences subsided. The whispers ceased, the cold chills vanished, and the feeling of being watched dissipated. Ramon continued to keep the phone, not as a reminder of fear or sorrow, but as a memento of a life that had touched his own, a connection to the unseen world that had briefly intersected with his own. Ramon's story is a testament to the power of empathy and compassion, even in the face of the unknown. By treating the phone with respect and acknowledging the presence within, he was able to establish a connection, not of fear, but of understanding. It's a reminder that sometimes the most effective way to deal with the paranormal is not through fear or aggression, but through kindness and acceptance. In Filipino folklore, there's a belief that spirits can linger in the physical world if they have unfinished business or unresolved emotions. These spirits, known as kaluluwa, are often depicted as restless souls seeking closure or connection. Ramon's experience with the phone could be interpreted as an encounter with a kaluluwa, seeking solace and recognition. Listeners, the stories we've shared tonight offer a glimpse into the rich tapestry of Filipino folklore and the paranormal. They remind us that the world we inhabit is filled with mysteries, with unseen forces and energies that may forever elude our complete understanding. But perhaps it's this very mystery that keeps us captivated, that fuels our curiosity and compels us to explore the boundaries between the known and the unknown. If you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can submit your story through our website or social media channels. Your experiences could be featured in a future episode of Stories Philippines podcast. And remember, listeners, if you're enjoying the show, please consider supporting us by checking the links in the show notes. Your support helps us to continue bringing you these captivating tales from the Philippines. As we conclude our journey into the realm of the paranormal, let us remember that these stories are not merely tales of fear and dread, but reflections of our deepest fears, our hopes, and our enduring fascination with the mysteries that lie beyond our perception. They remind us that the world is a vast and wondrous place, filled with both beauty and darkness, and that the human experience is inextricably linked to the unseen forces that surround us. So listeners, the next time you find yourself in the quiet solitude of your room, or walking along a deserted street, or perhaps even holding your phone in your hand, take a moment to consider the unseen world, the whispers of the past, and the lingering energies that may surround you. For in the realm of the paranormal, the boundaries between reality and the unknown are often blurred, and the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows may be closer than you think. And with that final thought, I bid you all good night. I'm Alex, your host, and I look forward to joining you again in our next episode of Stories Philippines podcast, where we'll delve into more captivating tales from the archipelago. Until then, keep your minds open, your senses alert, and remember, the stories are out there, waiting to be discovered. As we conclude our journey through these captivating Filipino ghost stories, we invite you, dear listeners, to reflect on the power of these narratives to challenge our perceptions and ignite our imaginations. These stories, passed down through generations, woven into the fabric of Filipino culture, offer glimpses into a world beyond our ordinary understanding. They speak of lingering spirits, restless souls, and unseen energies that intertwine with our lives in unexpected ways. They remind us that the past is never truly gone, that the veil between the living and the departed can be thin, and that the boundaries of reality are more fluid than we might imagine. But these stories are not just about fear and the unknown. They also speak of love, loss, and the enduring power of human connection. They remind us that even in the face of death, our emotions and memories can persist, leaving their mark on the world around us. We encourage you, dear listeners, to share your own stories of the strange and unexplained. Have you encountered a ghostly figure, experienced a chilling premonition, or felt the presence of an unseen entity? Your stories, like the ones we've shared today, contribute to the rich tapestry of human experience, reminding us that we are all connected, both to each other and to the mysteries that lie beyond our comprehension. And as we continue to explore the wonders and mysteries of the unseen world, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery. Support our podcast, share our stories, and let's keep the conversation going. Together, we can delve deeper into the realms of the paranormal, seeking answers, embracing the unknown, and celebrating the enduring power of human curiosity. Thank you for listening. Keep an open mind, and remember, the world is full of wonders waiting to be discovered. This has been your host, Alex. Signing off. Good night.